And they don't know that you mean that unless they truly know you. And then if they know you and they know that you mean what you say, then they will believe that you really mean that. And it works both ways. And you need to understand that God, who God is, and the way to understand who God is to know the names of God. And knowing the names of God will give you at least the runway or the pathway or the foundation to experience all that God is personally for yourselves. And this name, Rapha, once again, it means to restore, and it means to heal. In Exodus 15:26, we see it introduced, and if you don't have a Bible with you, they'll put it up on the screen there. But I encourage you, even if you don't have time, because I'm going to run through a fair amount of scriptures today. I think it's pretty cool to use the Bible because it helps, especially for me, because otherwise I've got nothing much to say. But in Exodus 15:26, God was speaking here, and he said down at the very end of that verse, you see it, "For I am the Lord who heals you." For I am the Lord who heals you. Let me put it to you this way. Whatever God is does not change. God was, is, and always will be as he says he is, the Lord who heals you. You see, we are a three-part being. If you've never heard that, let me explain it to you. You have a body. You're pretty aware of that. You dressed it this morning. Hopefully you bathed it and you brushed its teeth and you combed its hair if you have any. And you did everything you could to make it presentable. That's your body. Then you have a soul. That's that part of you that is emotional, that feels, and it's your mind, your will, your emotions. It's that part of you that is sensitive to everything around you. But then deeper than that, you are a spirit. The part of you that will live forever is your spirit. And if you've ever been around a situation where someone moved from this life into eternity, you know what I'm talking about. I've been with people as they have left this earth, and it is very clear that that body is a shell. It's very clear that that person that you knew, that soul that inhabited that shell, also had a spirit. And when that spirit leaves that body, man, it is an amazing thing. But you are a spirit, and let me say this to you. God is interested in all three parts of your being. And I know this, God heals three different ways. He heals naturally. Anybody ever been cut before? Did it bleed until you had no more blood left? No, because you wouldn't be here. So God designed your body to heal itself. It's really cool talking to Doug all the time now because he's in physician's assistant school. He's probably more advanced than them because he was in medical school before he ever left that and went into ministry full time. He was in medical school, so he's constantly calling me and saying, "Did you know?" And of course my response is always, "Of course I didn't know." But he's, like he told you this morning, your cells, and I can't even repeat it, all of that's being reproduced and all that's taking place in your body, God designed that so that it could heal itself. Well, God also heals medically through medicine. God has given us the wisdom on the earth to heal the human body with what capacity that we've amassed so far to understand this body that He created, to heal in that way. But He also heals miraculously. And He still does it because He said there in Exodus, "I am," and what He is never changes. "I am the Lord who heals you." That is even miraculously. If you've got your Bible, I want you to turn to Mark chapter 1. And while you're doing that, what we're going to do is this, so that you can see the nature, the healing nature of God. We can do this. In John chapter 14, don't turn there, verse 8 and 9. If you want to write it down, you can. There was one of the followers of Jesus by the name of Philip who asked Jesus one day, he said, "Would you just let us see God? Is there some way to possibly show us God?" And this was Jesus' response. He said, "Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father." What he's basically saying, if you're looking at me, you're looking at God. I like the way the book of Hebrews chapter 1 verse 3 says it in the Amplified version. It says that Jesus is the very image of God's nature. Jesus is the very image of God's nature. Maybe I gave you the wrong verse. Oh, there it is. He's the very image of God's nature. So when Jesus was saying, if you've seen me, you've seen God, then it's possible for us to look at Jesus and what He did and see the nature of God. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm glad you agree. Mark chapter 1, look at verse 3. We're going to pretty much use this right here for everything else that we do for the rest of the hour. And notice in Mark chapter 1, verse 40. Mark chapter 1, verse 40. It says, "A man with leprosy came to him, this is to Jesus, and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Verse 41, filled with compassion, Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him and he was cured. Would you agree that this was miraculous? 4 of you. Awesome. That's a crowd. We've got a majority there. This is obviously a miraculous healing. And I want to connect this again to the nature of God. God said, "I am the Lord who heals you." And I'm going to show you a verse in a few minutes that says that Jesus, who is the very image of God's nature, and we see that as he lived on the earth for all these years and everything that he did, that was the reflection of God on the earth. And when we look at him, we can see God. So if it was God's nature to heal miraculously, then would it not be also his nature to heal today? Because if he heals naturally in your body and he heals medically, you can't leave out the way that Jesus healed either, in healing miraculously. So in response to this, I want to ask you 3 questions to hopefully help drive home this nature and this attribute of God, the healer. And the first one is this: why is Jesus a healer? And when we say Jesus, we can say God. Remember, Jesus said, "I am the very reflection of God. I'm the image of God's nature." Why is Jesus a healer? Why? I mean, look at us. Look at the world. That's what most people do when they talk about God. They say, well, if God really cared, if he was really interested, if he was really concerned, why would things look the way they are? I can't answer every one of those questions. I mean, why didn't you eat yesterday? Why did you eat the garbage you ate yesterday? I mean, why did you exercise yesterday? Why did you do nothing yesterday? Why don't you work at everything that you do with everything that you've got? Why don't you give generously to people who need? Why are you stingy? Why are you so loving? Why are you so kind? Why are you so mean? Why are you so anal? Why are you so rough and harsh? I mean, you think, you following me? I can't answer all those questions, but I can answer this one. Why is Jesus a healer? And it's simply this: because he loves people. And he's full of compassion. And he's concerned with every part of our being. You could almost say it like this: compassion is passion in action. In Mark chapter 14, if you've got your Bible. Did I go to the right place? Yeah, Mark chapter 14. Matthew, 14. Go back to the left. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm doing. Matthew chapter 14, look at verse 14. This is another instance where Jesus was in the middle of doing something pretty important. He was feeding a bunch of hungry people. They were hungry because they had walked away from every food source to listen to him. But in verse 14 it says, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. You see, it was the response of compassion to heal. Healing is a compassionate response of the nature of God. And the nature of God is that he's a healer. And in Matthew 14, verse 14 there, when Jesus got out of this boat that he'd used to move to the other side of this lake away from all those that he'd fed, it says, because of compassion, he healed their sick. Now, let me say this to you. Jesus was not healing people while he was on the earth to prove that he was the Son of God.